Hey everyone, JCS Starcraft here, bringing you Game 1 of the finals for the Go4SC2 number 36 between Socke and BratOK. Action getting started here on Xel'Naga Caverns. My pronunciation was a little bit off there. It's actually, I looked it up, and while I've heard it pronounced Socke, I forgot who it was. I think one of the big broadcasters, HD, Husky, or Day9. The actual pronunciation is Socke. So I will be using that from now on. And BratOK was the name that I heard Day9 pronounce some time ago. Some people have been saying BratOK. I think Husky says BratOK. I like saying BratOK because it rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. But of course, these two did meet in the Go4SC2 August final in the quarterfinal round, the first round actually of the round of 8. And BratOK was able to win in the best of 3 series, although it did go down to the 3rd game, and they did have a really epic game 2. So Socke at this point, I know him as the epic Protoss player, as since the MLG he went down into the losers bracket pretty early, but came all the way back up and fought his way into 3rd place. So very great result from there, and had some really epic games against him and Drewby that HD and Husky broadcasted. I think each game was over close to an hour. So some crazy broadcasting on their behalf. Props to them for having their voices still intact. I don't think they drank 1 ounce of water the entire time during that, or maybe they snuck some in between the cast. And so it looks like Socke is going to be going with that 12 gate and a decently later assimilator of 15 before he throws that down. BratOK going with the very standard 12-13 opening on his standpoint. So just eking out a few more minerals right there and possibly pumping out a few more probes to gain a slightly smaller economic advantage. At the silver, gold, or platinum level, that economic advantage probably won't make very much of a difference. But at the pro level, you even see players like Nama who wait for that extra SCV, getting a 16 orbital against most of his opponents who go for the very standard 15 orbital command, just to try to eke out an extra SCV in there to gain that small, very, very small, almost insignificant looking advantage in the beginning. But once the harassment begins, that helps. Every little bit helps, as you know, the Banshee harassment doesn't kill too many, can't wipe out the entire line, but can take out 3 or 4 at a time. And over the course of the game, as they start going into the mid and late game, it does make a bigger difference. BratOK now going to be throwing down his factory decently far away from everything else. He is not walled off, so knows that anything can run in and scout at this point. So I think trying to hide this factory temporarily right now should be pretty interesting to see what he does. BratOK in the beta definitely favored a very big bio build against his Protoss opponent, and opting for most of the time some really early ghosts and just pumping out the Marines. He has shifted a little bit since the launch of beta, and now supplements his bio army with the factory and goes pretty much into the mid game. Instead, Socke now going to be getting out that later Stalker, just the first unit he has out onto the field, and now going to be researching the warp gate, getting out a sentry second to defend as well. And both these players just kind of firmly establishing. So it looks like BratOK built that factory so that he could float it out and scout it as soon as possible, as factories are incredibly slow to move out. He might be planting this somewhere. I'm going to take a look at the rally point, kind of scouting things out and holding it around the back. No, it looks like he is going to be running in as a scouting factory. And Socke going to be taking his expansion now that his sentry is up down on the ground. He can wall off if he has to. And really like, you know, what pro players do versus a lot of the kind of platinum players or gold players, is that even though they only have 2 units out onto the field, they don't stay in their base at all. They are constantly actively out exploring. Socke at this point knows that his opponent really only has a handful of bunkers, and while BratOK is holding down the fort and bunkering in his Marines right here, able to drive away the Stalker, not allowing any scouting, Socke is going to run right away there. Knows that that bunker is there, shouldn't try to run past it. BratOK is instead using his factory to perform his scouting as well, saving his scan so that he can pump out as many mules as possible. He has not seen too much in scouting with another SCV as well. Going to run in here. Socke going to just see that SCV run right past in the sentry, allows the SCV to get past, and now BratOK at this point is going to scout out that fast expansion from Socke. Socke going with a 3-gate robo right now. and getting that fast expansion out pretty early against his opponent. BratOK scouting this out, and probably we'll be seeing him push in with some sort of early aggression. Getting the Raven first out right now so that he can pop any observers down on the ground. Little does he know that the Robo Bay isn't even complete yet. And Socke, I think, doing a kind of a risky move right here, getting his early expansion, is able to reinforce at the moment, and I think was just counting on perhaps some sort of attack. It looks like BratOK was thinking that some sort of attack, early pressure, push was about to happen on his base, and right now going to be moving across, really wants to get in there before Socke can reinforce. Socke with a good mix of Sentry and Stalkers right now, going to be coming down and getting his probe fried. This Stalker is going to get picked off a little bit if it's caught out of position. BratOK at this point still having Stim research, wants to move out though and try to take down that expansion, but Socke is going to be able to reinforce at this point, forcing BratOK to retreat right here. He only has Marines and the Raven who can throw down the PDD to hold things off for a little bit. It doesn't have enough mana to do so. Not quite yet, just needs a few more, which I think is why he's trying to go back and forth. If he can throw down that PDD and really nullify the Stalkers for a little bit, forcing Socke to retreat, but if that Stim kicks in, he can chase down and possibly eke out some sort of army advantage right there. Raven does have enough, and Socke is aiming for that Raven, doesn't want that PDD to go down. More medevacs are coming in to reinforce. BratOK just pumping out Marines at this point. Doesn't even have a Marauder out on the field yet, and combat's going to be lined up to follow the Stim research. Stim about to finish for BratOK at this point. Meanwhile, it does look like he is pumping out units from the factory, which I always like to see, hiding it behind the grass here on Zonage. Socke cannot see that at all, so just doing a great job and kind of just keeping, he knows that his opponent's forces are right here. Is there a proxy pylon anywhere? No. Socke going to be moving in with the observer. Pretty dangerous actually, because there is this Raven out here right now, but I think wants to sacrifice this so he can get some scouting in. And here come the Hellions on the backside, pumped out from that factory, which was moved all the way over. Socke did see that factory, but I think just didn't think that, I think just thought that BratOK was going to retreat with it. Hellions are coming in here to fry everything that they possibly can. Socke at this point is going to get a Colossus out onto the field and is researching thermal lands. The Hellion goes down to the probe line right there, and looking at the units lost, it looks like Socke did lose a handful of probes at the moment, but is still ahead of BratOK. BratOK trying to even things out. His command center, his expansion is down at this point at his natural. And there goes that observer down, walking in a little bit too close to the Raven. A few more racks is going down so that he can keep his production up. This factory is still sitting here, sitting pretty. Socke does not know. I think he thinks everything was running from behind. If he scouts it just in 1 second, would not allow BratOK to pump more out. I'm curious to see whether or not BratOK will be pumping out any more Hellions right now. And now that his upgrades are finished, BratOK going to be pushing in with some sort of a timing attack. And as well as a dual-pronged attack, so his main forces running into the front, trying to pick off and hold up against, probably will have a very difficult time against this Colossus. Now he actually has been pumping out some Vikings as well and getting concussive shell finally. So here comes the dual-pronged attack for BratOK, going to be dropping down the back. It's going to do significant economic damage if these probes don't run out of there in time. I think BratOK was hoping to engage that front army so that he could kind of pull them away, and Socke with very strong reaction time right there pulls everyone off. BratOK unfortunately wasn't able to engage at the moment, and so doesn't really want to drop just yet, but going to be keeping this guy out here hanging around. And Socke, playing very smart strategy right there, is going to be throwing down a cannon near the back of his base, a few photon cannons right there, and going to be nullifying a bit, although no cannon right here just yet. And if BratOK can scout that, BratOK going to be throwing down the drop before the cannon can actually go down, or trying to run around at the moment. So going to be driven off right now. BratOK can't really engage on because of everything going down at Socke's base. Socke looks like he is going to be moving in at this point. BratOK is breaking down the rocks on the backside and sees some forces, is able to pick off this lone Marauder. Meanwhile, it looks like BratOK is going to be pulling in with his Hellions right now, trying to do as much damage as possible. The cannons are being set down right there. And back at the base, Socke is able to push in with his army. A lot of great force fields are going down at the moment. I don't know if BratOK's going to have enough really to engage here. Right now, running behind, Socke is running in. Everything's just taking fire at the moment. But Socke does have a proxy pylon down and is reinforcing at the moment. And so able to run away, kiting because of the PDD and pulling the forces out. I don't think BratOK should engage a ton of great force fields going right down right now for Socke, and able to pick off everything right there. Back at the base, it looks like these Hellions were able to get in there for a little bit, and looking at the harvester count, BratOK was able to catch up just a little bit, but you know, everything's going to get fried right there. Meanwhile, the army up here just getting annihilated with that reinforcement. Socke is going to be able to push in pretty quickly, and I just don't think BratOK has enough at the moment. Looking at the army count, 94 over 63. So just a great job microing from Socke, and I think unfortunately for BratOK, some really great force fields were placed down, and kind of he just ran past beyond the borders of. There were 2 PDDs that absorbed a lot of damage, but just ran a little bit beyond that. Looks like the caster stayed in this game for quite some time. I think was trying to cast what just happened here. So it is Socke who's going to take game 1 right now, and I just really enjoyed that he did put down cannons at his base and kind of stopped any sort of harassment on the line. Very critical, as that on the pro level, supply line harassment has been just the name of the game and the deciding factor in most of these games. So great job from both players. Socke takes game 1, and this has been JCS StarCraft signing off.